Hello. Welcome on back to my channel. I hope y'all are doing well. Back with us today, I have my friend Le Perrier, and on her, I'm creating a look that I think would be perfect for a date night. It's sultry, it's glam, and it's very dramatic. So without further ado, if you want to learn how I created this look right here, then keep on watching. So to begin, I'm taking a sunscreen that shall remain nameless right now and applying this onto our model's skin. Now, I hate to start off on the wrong foot, but there is a whole backstory to this. Long story short, though, a brand wanted to partner up with me to promote the launch of this sunscreen. I won't bore you with all the logistics, but basically, their whole claim behind this sunscreen was that it blends in completely invisible. But as we can see, that's not the case. It's clearly leaving behind a white cast. So I sent them this footage, and yeah, I don't want to say the company, but let's just say this was not something I can get behind, but a product I can get behind is the Elemis Superfood Facial Oil. This has saved the day right here. I've applied on a couple of drops onto the back of my hand and little by little applying this onto the drier areas of her skin by really pressing this into the skin. Besides the fact that our model Le Perrier already has, a slightly drier skin type, we're also using a lot of powders today. And that sunscreen really didn't help much either. So this is adding the moisture and grip back into the skin. You see me use this oil quite often because it's a very thin formula that it doesn't feel heavy or greasy on the skin. It's just an overall a quality product that I grab for my makeup kit on a lot of clients because it works on all skin types, whether it be oily or dry, combination, whatever it is. A couple of drops of this makes a big difference to the outcome of the makeup. Now, once I have this applied on, I'm using this e.l.f. Camo color corrector around the mouth and under eyes. This is going to prevent any grayish hues from casting through once we brighten and highlight this area later on. The goal is to keep everything really quite warm and saturated. For foundation today, I'm using the Shiseido Synchro Skin Radiant Lifting Foundation, mixing two shades together, which I'll list down below, and applying this on with my sponge. Every time we get together in Glam, I try out different foundations and formulas, but I find myself coming back to this one because I love the undertones, and I find it pairs really well with a warm peachy highlight, which you'll see later on. But what's most important here is that you notice it covers any of those grayish hues where we're getting from the sunscreen, and it blends right over that color corrector, leaving behind an even complexion and still has the dewy skin-like finish, and that's because of the hydration we're getting from the facial oil we used. It really helps the complexion product sink right in and blend beautifully. Next up, I'm taking this Patrick Ta Bronzer Cream and Powder Duo in the shade She's Defined and applying this to the areas of the face I want to bring back structure, such as the hollows of her cheeks, the temples, and along the forehead and jawline. I think this is a really important step for those who enjoy a full coverage complexion, because when we're using a foundation that is full coverage, it kind of flattens out the dimensions of the face. So this is a nice way to accentuate the bone structure, but in a really natural way, taking your time, building the opacity, and then once you have it applied on with a brush, go over everything once more with your makeup sponge to achieve a soft, undetectable blend. It's at this point I'm going to take two of these Natasha Denona Hy-glam concealers and applying them on with a brush to highlight the face and to conceal the under eyes. The light shade I'm using is C4 and the deeper one is shade P8. I use the lighter one just there underneath the eyes to get a dramatic brightening effect, and the deeper one I use on other areas I want to highlight, such as the center of the forehead, down the nose, and the Cupid's bow and chin. I find myself mixing the two together, and I'll even mix in the color corrector to shift the undertone and to get the level of brightness I'm looking for. But that just kind of comes down to where I'm applying it. In this case, as the title suggests, I'm creating a look that's fit for a date night or a girls' night out on the town, any kind of scenario where you're going to be in low lighting. So I can afford to go quite bright with this under eye area for a dramatic effect. And of course, it all comes together with the blending, so take your time with this step to get it just right. Now that we have everything pretty much blended, I'm going to take this Rare Beauty liquid blush in the shade Grateful and pop this right onto the cheeks. This is a really beautiful blush for those of you who enjoy a touch of warmth to the cheeks. I find it creates a nice segue between the contour and the highlight. And even though I'll be adding powder blush later on, this makes for a great base to build on top of. Just add on a bit with a brush and follow up with blending it out with the sponge. Once this is blended, I'm taking the Anastasia Beverly Hills setting powder in two different shades called Banana, and the other is Deep Peach. And I'm mixing them together to set the under eye concealer into place, really pressing that powder in with a powder puff. I use these two shades all of the time, especially that shade Deep Peach. It's a really beautiful like light warm powder, but sometimes I find myself wanting to go even warmer with the undertone, such as today. So once I have this applied, I'm then taking this Ben Eye powder in the shade Dolce and using this to bake with along the same area underneath the eyes. You see how this shade has more warmth to it, almost kind of orangey? Well, this is going to help keep the under eye looking saturated and bright once we come back to wipe it off later. For the rest of the face, I'm taking another Anastasia Beverly Hills powder, but this time in the shade Golden Orange, and using this to lightly set the rest of her face with, mainly the perimeter of the forehead and jawline. This is the deepest shade powder of all the powders I'm using today, but it still has that consistent warmth to it. And that's what's, most important here, especially when working on clients with deeper skin tones. If the powders and the undertones aren't quite right, the makeup can start looking real crazy real quick. So even though I'm using a lot of different powders in different shades, there is a purpose, and that's to maintain and complement the rich, warm undertones in her skin. And by the way, here I'm taking the shade we used underneath the eyes and using this to bake along the jawline, which really sharpens and accentuates her cheekbones. Doesn't that look nice? I think it makes a pretty big difference in the final result. But in the meantime, I'm starting on the brows using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Pomade in the shade Ebony and using this to shape and define her brows with. I like to start about halfway into the brow and then work my way outwards to extend the tail of the brow, giving that lifted and defined shape. And then I take a small eyeshadow blending brush and start blending that pigment forward. This kind of adds a soft ombre diffused effect to the front. Afterwards, with some black eyeshadow on an angled liner brush, I'm filling in and adding even more dimension before I clean up the brow with concealer. Now, this step is totally optional, but I'm taking the concealer we used earlier and tracing along the lower portion of the brow before diffusing out the lower edges and setting it with powder. What this does is it sharpens and defines and cleans up the brow, and it really helps highlight the brow bone as well. To start on the eye makeup, I'm taking this warm shade here from the Huda Beauty Matte Obsessions eyeshadow palette and applying this onto the upper lid, diffusing it outwards for a winged effect. Next up, I'm taking this shade here from the same palette and using this to diffuse the edges of the first shadow we used. Don't be afraid to smoke this up and out because this is acting as the backdrop for the eyeliner we use afterwards. And it's these same shades that I use to lightly smoke out the lower lash line with as well. For eyeliner, I'm using this Maybelline black gel eyeliner, and with an angled liner brush, I'm tracing this along the upper lash line from the inner corner all the way to the very outer. But as you make your way to the outer corner, start lifting this liner upwards. It doesn't have to be, perfect, because you'll take a clean blending brush to blend and smudge that liner out. You want to make sure you do this before the liner dries down so you have a chance to move it around. But once you do, take a black eyeshadow to set it into place, as you see here. This is the time you can really work this around and build it up to create the eye shape you're going for. Once I'm pretty happy with it though, I'll take that same gel eyeliner, run it through the lower waterline before also smudging it out with the black eyeshadow. The more you smudge it out and the lower you bring it down, the more dramatic it's gonna be. So that's something to keep in mind. But once I get it just right, I'll take this Urban Decay black eyeliner pen and trace this along the upper and lower lash line. This is key to getting that really dark pitch black lash line. Yes, of course, use the gel eyeliner and eyeshadow and all that, but finishing with a liquid eyeliner is the cherry on top of the sundae. Now moving right along, I'm taking this Too Faced waterproof mascara and running a generous coat through both her top and bottom lashes. Don't be shy with this, really get in there and coat the lashes well, because it'll help the falsies we use next blend right in. For lashes, I'm using this style called 90s Baby from Tati Lashes and popping these right on. For me personally, lashes are usually a hit or miss, but today I got pretty lucky and I like how these look. They're dense and dramatic and they amplify the eye makeup perfectly. So now I'm wiping away what's left of this baking powder before using this One Size blush trio in the shade Fire Starter. I feel like this color was made for Le Perrier. I mean, she already looks like a real life Barbie without all the makeup, but this just amps up the look and gives her cheeks the perfect touch of color. And because this blush has a warm undertone, I can bring it up to the under eyes to contribute to the warm hues of the powders we used. For highlighter, I'm using this Haus Labs gel powder highlighter in the shade Golden Pyrite, and I'm just applying this down to the center of her nose. I'm already enjoying the matte velvet finish we're getting from the rest of the face, but I do like when the center of the nose has a little extra highlight. Now to begin on the lips, I'm using this MAC lip liner, although I can't quite remember what the shade is. I know I looked, but I forgot. It's either the shade Cork or it's Chestnut. So if you're good with your MAC lip liners, please let me know which one you think it is. I think it's Cork, but either way, it pairs perfectly with the lipstick we'll use with it. The lipstick I'm using today is from e.l.f. It's in the shade Feeling Myself, and I'm quickly applying this to the center of the lips for a hint of color before going in with the lip pencil again to blend in the edges. I like how these two colors complement each other well to create a neutral lip color that I'd consider to be low maintenance compared to, let's say, a bold red lip or something. All you gotta do is bring some gloss with you and you're good to go. The gloss I'm using today is the Buxom Plumping Lip Gloss in the shade Celeste, and I'm applying this right on top for that high shine finish. As always, you can keep the lip matte if you prefer, but I don't know. I'll always love a good gloss, especially for date night. But either way, now that the lips are complete, I'm finishing off with the Dalba First Spray Serum to rehydrate the skin after using all of those powders, making this the final step in how I created this date night glam on our naturally beautiful model. Ooh, yeah. There we have it, kids. I hope you all enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, be sure to give this video a big ol' thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out more of my work on my Instagram at Painted by Spencer. And until next time, I'll see you soon.